Espresso culture is failing, but somehow that's actually making it better. So everyone's advice online is conflicting. You've probably wasted a lot of expensive beans or a lot of time trying to do something that someone on Reddit told you to do, only to have bad results. I've been there. We've all been there. By the end of this video, I want to help you separate out the noise online from the things that are actually helpful. And we're going to do this by looking at 3 main espresso villain archetypes that I keep seeing online everywhere. Learn what we need to learn from them, and then also leave them in the dust forever. Just as a quick caveat, I don't have any of the online coffee people in mind whenever I'm making this video. This is just ideologies that I think need to be addressed. In my opinion, there's 3 mortal enemies of espresso right now. We have the gatekeepers, we have the dogmatists, and then lastly we have the clout culture. Now, the gatekeepers in general are people who think to themselves, oh, you really need to be spending multi-$1,000s on a grinder. And they're going to tell you this. There's a point to having good gear, but there's a ton of gatekeepers out there. Dogmatists are basically my way or the highway, people who continually purvey that they have the only good solutions, and clout culture, I will get to them. Boy, do these people make me really, really mad. And I think all of us can think of a time where we bought something new or something that people swore by, and it turned out just be overhyped and really bad for our setup and our enjoyment, and certainly wasn't worth the cost that we put into it. The worst part is these voices aren't wrong. These 3 people, they all have good points. So how do we separate that signal from the noise and actually make something that we enjoy? Before we get into it, be sure to sign up at the emailer below. Free weekly tips. Just if you want to be better at espresso, that's where I give you the best of the best in short format. So that first major villain I talked about was the gatekeepers. And I want to rename this type of person as Gearmongerers. I know it's kind of a silly term, but I think it's pretty fair. And it's the idea that if you don't have blank, then your shots are bad. This is kind of the whole mantra here. The issue is that these people, they do have a point. There are minimum barriers to entry, and there are major constricting points that you're going to face in your espresso journey. Because at the end of the day, good gear is needed to make, first off, just espresso in general. If you do not have an espresso machine, you cannot make espresso. But also good gear is required for really good espresso. You can make quite good espresso on really budget gear, and I think that's great, and you can still really enjoy that stuff. But if you're going for the pinnacle, you do end up needing the pinnacle. There is a bit of a pay-to-play element to espresso. But this leads us into some personal struggles I've had with this gear mongering. So I am one of those people who have the $10,000 setup that you would see on Instagram or Reddit or whatever. You do need good gear if you want to make really great espresso. But you can make really good espresso with budget gear. I have a lot of friends who have gear that's 1/5 or 1/10 the price of what I've spent on my setup, and they can go toe-to-toe with me in terms of espresso flavor. Now, usually they're not going to win. Maybe you're consistently producing like an 8.5 out of 10 shot, and I might be consistently producing a 9 out of 10 shot or a 9.2 out of 10 shot. But also my setup is in the ballpark of 7 times more expensive than that. So what do you expect? Do you think that that 0.7 better shot that I'm making is worth 7 times the amount of income? Probably not. So how do you know if the gearmonger is right and it's time to upgrade? I want to work through a very quick decision tree with you, and hopefully this will give you some guidance. So first question you should ask is, do I enjoy my shots? If yes, then don't change anything. If you enjoy your shots and you're quite happy with them, that's the whole point here. You're good. But if no, that's a terrible end. We're going to go down to the next question. Do you know that you should be liking these shots but can't make them tasty? Not that your gear is insufficient right now per se, but you're just struggling a lot with dialing it in. Then my answer is to A/B test, and if yes, new decision tree. Have you mastered your gear? And you are good water and good beans. If the answer is yes, you feel like you actually have mastered everything, then we can talk about spending some money on an upgrade. And if no, you don't think you've quite mastered it, guess what? A/B test and return to 1. I recognize that it's not a creative decision tree. At the end of the day, it's if you enjoy your stuff, then be happy there. Usually, if you're trying to upgrade on flavor, you should look at your grinder. And if you're trying to upgrade on workflow, you should look at your espresso machine. Back to Gearmongers. What should we actually be learning from them? One, gear matters. And I would classify it as decent gear can make good shots, while good gear can make great shots. Great gear usually is a workflow or aesthetic investment. I recommend at least starting with something like a Gaugia or a Flare or something in the ballpark, grinder-wise, for maybe like an ESP, like a Baratz ESP or an Opus. And while more expensive gear is good, usually when you're starting out, it's not your limiting point. It's skill, and you can get good results without spending a fortune. Number two is your method actually does matter. The ability to dial in and even do things like pre-infusion does matter at the end of the day. This is what allows you to tailor to your taste. But I believe this. I would take a great barista over complicated gear any day. Complicated gear, like a decent, as awesome as that is, a great barista can be quite clever and still produce a lot of the good stuff that a decent can't. Not everything, but a lot. The next thing is expensive beans. They do matter. And then the last thing gearmongers love to go on about is water. And hey, I'll give them a stamp of approval on that. But what's really pernicious to me about the gearmonger mentality is FOMO, fear of missing out. We keep seeing all these new things come out. You can be excited for it. It can be a really good piece of tech. Except you might not need the new thing that just came out. And that's hard to believe. And FOMO has been fed into because every new thing is supposed to be revolutionary. And these gearmongers take that and they absolutely run with it. Historically, though, I think that maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 of these new trends from the gearmongers are a hit. And I really believe that we should view the improvements made from new gear as incremental improvements rather than revolutionary improvements. So yeah, gear actually does matter. It makes a big difference. They have a point, but gear is not absolutely everything. Diminishing returns are absolutely real. And after a certain price point, like I said, you're going from attempting to produce decent to good and then good to great. It might be great to really great, but it's, again, diminishing returns. But if gear is not the end all be all, why are there people that swear so dogmatically about their method and their gear? And even worse, and I'm going to make a lot of people mad with this, the annoying light roast apostles out there who swear if you're not getting a cinnamon roast or a hyper light or a Nordic or whatever, then you're not making real espresso and you're bad. Okay, I hear you, buddy. Now I'm addressing you people in the comment sections, typing away at your keyboards because you're going to tell me I'm wrong. And I'm going to get my reference material for this one, dogmatists. And I'm going to refer to these people as ACKCHUALLYs. The most annoying type, there we go, now you can see it. The most annoying type of person in my espresso journey has been the people who swear that their way is the right way and you're an absolute idiot for not following it. And holy cow, are there a lot of you, even in this comment section. Welcome, hi, I'm glad you're here, but also stop it. And their thought process, which, I'm going to agree, it's got some correct method or correct thought to it, is bad method is bad everything. What I would rather say is good method is consistency. And it has almost nothing to do with flavor. Good method just means consistent results that you can dial in better. And you can disagree with me because pressure profiling and step down baskets and all that might actually make a difference. I hear you. But at the same time, I don't care. Stop it. Now, I'm going to hit you with a little bit of back in my day kind of story. And I get it. I'm actually not that old. We didn't have James Hoffman. And I love James Hoffman. But we didn't have him to tell us all the right answers. And that's quite sad because whenever I was getting into this, the only way to learn more about espresso was to go online, hop in a forum, and read what other people were saying. And no, it was not Reddit. Instead, it would be people like Jim. And Jim would go online, and Jim would tell you that he's been trying out whatever. He's been playing with conicals and flats. And then other people would hop into the forum and say, oh, I've been playing with this too, and I noticed that as well. Those were good days. But at the same time, those days had their fair share of problem too. I'm going to write a term down for you, and maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. Nutating tamp. If you don't know what a nutating tamp is, it's the idea. This is my portafilter basket. Instead of taking the tamper and going straight up and down on it and trying to tamp flat, you would instead have a convex tamper, go flat, and then nutate it around in a circle a little bit in order to, this was the theory behind it, deal with the fact that you're not getting any of the grounds pressed into the sidewall of the basket. So to help prevent donutting, you would get the convex tamper and then you nutate it to make a flat bed. And absolutely no one does that anymore. If you do, and that's great, I'm proud of you. I actually don't think it's all bad, but no one does it anymore. Why? Because it turns out it's not actually that effective. You can be actually about good water or WDT or RDT and all those things. Like I was saying with the Gearmongerers, maybe like 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 times. But it's very easy to forget that and just pretend like you're right about everything. So in order to deal with the actually tight, I have 3 things for you. One is I think you should define your goals. What do you want? Do you want it bright or balanced, traditional or exotic? And you can ask more questions like this, but if you're going for a balanced traditional, you might not really care to spend the crazy amounts of money on absolutely everything under the sun. But defining your goals helps you know what you're going for and also sets the framework for when the actually people are right and when the actually people are wrong. And I'm going to say they're usually wrong because step number 2 is you need to set spending boundaries. As with the Gearmongers, if you are happy, then you are done. You do not need to keep spending ridiculous amounts of money on your espresso setup just because someone told you to. If you know that your eventual financial cap is only $500, $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is, set it and be happy. I genuinely believe that you should get as good as you possibly can with what you have before you move up. Unless you just have money burning a hole in your pocket and you love the hobby, that's totally okay too. And then number 3 is experiment for enjoyment. And what I really mean by this is get off the internet. Stop listening to what everyone tells you should be a good shot. Define your goals. What do you actually want? Set spending boundaries so you don't absolutely burn a hole in your pocket like so many people do with this hobby. And then just experiment for things you enjoy rather than what people online tell you you ought to be doing. So the problem that actually people are addressing is real. Consistent method does matter, and consistent method is needed. It's helpful. But our fix is knowing what we need and what we want rather than just what they are telling us. Your goals and your enjoyment are paramount. The issue is not everything needs to be dogma. And we need to overcome our raptor brains that say shiny object good in order to recognize that. Yet if you go online and you type in coffee and you pull up like a YouTube short right now or whatever it is, the number one thing that's likely to come up is like the world's most ridiculous espresso workflow, because that stuff is super popular. And that brings us on to mortal enemy number 3, and it's clout culture. Absolutely ruining espresso. The issue with this culture, once again, as with all of these, the clout culture does have a point, and this is where I'm going to lose a lot of you. So clout culture in general, they would say something like expensive and beautiful gear equal delicious and beautiful espresso. And once again, I think that they do have a point because ritual and quality is what dictates enjoyment. Whenever I say ritual, this is the human psychology side of things. So your belief that something will be good does matter a lot. Because if you don't believe that something's going to be good, then you're probably going to preemptively decide that it's bad. So is there a reason to have expensive and beautiful gear and believe that it makes delicious and beautiful espresso? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. There's a reason why I love E61 machines. They are not complex. They're actually just mechanical devices that are fairly simple, and they are rock solid, produce great results. And I know people like to hate on them more recently. Few mods gets them to be some of the best machines on the planet, in my opinion. But boy, does a pressure profiling curve on a data screen make your shot look like it's going to be so much better than just actuating a lever with some manual controls. So I get it. I think that the combo of gear mongering and actually leads you to become a clout person. And if you ever say my humble setup and you have a $10,000 setup or more, I do not like you. You should stop. You're only trying to make everyone else jealous. And I know what you're doing. I see you. I'm watching you. But you really need to stop that. The issue is we all will assume that there's magic there. If you have that crazy setup, if you see that online and you watch all of the aesthetic side of it, you're going to assume that it's actually great. This is like playground rumors. We can probably all relate to back whenever we were kids and you're playing with your friends and someone says this phrase, I know something you don't know. What do you think happens? Everyone is begging them, clawing at them, saying, you have to tell me. And that's what's happening here. And you're wondering, behind the $3,000 grinder, is it really that much better? And you probably don't know. I can tell you the answer is it is a little better, but it's not that much better because diminishing turns are super real and they affect everything and everyone. The Clout Culture people, they do have a point. Beautiful setups. Going back to my stupid little equation for enjoyment, they've got the ritual down. And this is why I love lever machines. Such a big emphasis on ritual. And also, if you're spending $10,000, you probably got the quality side down. So does it make enjoyable shots? Absolutely it does. They have a point. But our fix is in recognizing diminishing returns. Diminishing returns are absolutely everything. And while spending that crazy amount of money does yield more ritual and usually more quality, the dollar effectiveness is maybe 1/10 or 1/50th of what your setup is. And if you really just don't like your espresso, the problem is not that you don't have a $10,000 setup. The problem is either your beans, your grind, your water, or your skill/method. Only thing flavor-wise that I believe has a big effect in terms of gear and expense is your grinder. But again, if you have a competent grinder, then you're probably fine. And the limiting factor is more likely in your beans, your water, or your method. I think the expensive, crazy gear, I'm not trashing that at all. It is for people who want to take this hobby and push it to its absolute limits and have the financial ability to do so. So despite all this, I still actually do enjoy the espresso culture. I know that these ideologies are big and they're very annoying, but it's not all bad. Because here's the truth of it. This same ridiculousness of the gearmongerers, the dogmatists, and the clout culture, that same group of people are also the ones who are usually pushing the craft forward. They get so impassioned by espresso and so impassioned by the ability to make something delicious and explore this and be a perpetual student of a craft that you truly cannot master, that they are pushing it forward and discovering what's good and what's bad and trying things. And yeah, we're going to be wrong a lot, and that's okay. And is it annoying whenever you push wrong things? Absolutely. But it's not all bad. The actual goal of everything we're doing is to make a shot that you enjoy, not the shot everyone tells you to make. I think that the passion in the culture is great as long as we view it as a conversation to get better rather than just, I'm right and you're wrong. Well, yeah, online toxicity has crept into the culture a little bit. I still think that there's a lot of people out there who want to be part of the conversation of it and want to get better. We ought to learn from the people who have the toxicity because they do make some really good points. At the end of the day, I think high tides raise all ships. I'm the only one who's right, and sign up for my email or catch y'all later.